Hello and welcome back to third part of the Atlas Search series where we are trying to understand different concepts about Atlas Search with MongoDB. My name is Asavri and welcome back to MongoDB's YouTube channel. In this video today we will understand some advanced concepts about Atlas Search and understand how do you build an application on a Spring Boot. The first part of the video that we did with the Atlas search was about creating these indexes. We learned about creating indexes using CLI. We learned about creating indexes using the Atlas UI and also using the Spring Boot application. In the second part of the video, what we did was using those indexes on this with this Spring Boot application. We created different methods using REST API calls, and we were utilizing those indexes which were created in the first part of the video. In this part of the video, we will be exploring some advanced search capabilities with MongoDB Atlas Search and understand different advanced capabilities that it provides. Before we get into the video, this is the tutorial which is present on our MongoDB Developer Center. We will be following along this tutorial throughout this video. There are a few prerequisites which are needed before we start and get into the actual implementation part of the application. Let's get into that. The first step is creating your first Atlas free tier cluster. So go to cloud.mongodb.com, the link to which is given in the description below, that will help you to create your first Atlas cluster. So as soon as you land here, create your first project. Let's name the first project as demo search. Click on next. Let's be the project owner for us and create the first project. Once you have the project ready, we would be creating our first free cluster. So let's wait for the project to load and let's start by creating the first cluster. Let's name the cluster as again demo for our search part 3 and create a free tier cluster and go to create deployment. Once you have created the cluster, there are two necessary things that you need to follow. The first is creating the database user. So let's close this tab and go to database access and create the first user. Now click on add database user. For this, we would be naming simply as test for both of them, and we'll add a built-in role with Atlas admin and create our first user. Once the user is all set, the next step is allowing access from everywhere. This is not recommended for production use, so this is only recommended if you want to try something out for the first time. Click on allow access from everywhere. This would allow the access list entry to 0.0.0.0 and confirm. This will allow you to access to your Atlas cluster from anywhere. Once this is all set, we are all set to have our deployment ready and create the first cluster. So by the time the cluster is creating, let's go back to the tutorial on the developer center and see what are the other prerequisites. The next prerequisite is loading the data. Now for this tutorial specifically, we are using two different JSON files, which is the product JSON and product review section. Now these two JSON will create two new collections for you in your Atlas cluster. You will use the import and the export data command to export these JSON files, and this will create a collection for you. To do this, there are two or three different methods to do it. One, you can use the Mongo import and Mongo export commands. The other way is to use through Compass. For this tutorial, we would be making use of the Compass. Now, you can download Compass by going to the Compass website, like go to Google and search for MongoDB Compass, download based on your operating system and the version that you want to install. And once that is installed, this is how your screen is going to look like for the Compass. Now, once you go to Compass, it says add a new connection. To add a new connection, you need basic connection URI. So we'll go back to the Atlas cluster to get the connection string. So click on connect, click on Compass, and then this is where you get your connection string. Copy this connection string and go back to Compass, paste it, and let's put the correct database password, which is test in our case, and just click on connect. Now it is trying to make the connection. Now if you see, it has correctly configured the connection. The next step is creating the database. Let's name this database as search, and let's name the collection as the product details. There are two collections that we need to create. One is product details and one is product reviews. Now, to import the data, we have the JSON file already inside the Developer Center article. So if you click on product details JSON file, this is going to land up to your GitHub page where you can just download the raw file for you to be downloaded. Let's do it for the other one as well so that we'll just keep it handy. Now let's go back to Compass. For product details, we have the product details.json file. We'll just click on import and the data will be imported for you. Let's create another collection here as well and name it as product reviews. Now, once you name it as product reviews, click on import data and import the JSON file. Once the data is imported, you'll see the data is there inside your collections. To verify, we can go back to the Atlas cluster and check if the data is there and is present. Click on database. And if you go to browse collections here, you should see both of these collections loaded in the system. So we have the search database, and inside search database, we have product details and the product reviews where the data has been loaded from your JSON structure. Now, if we just want to look at an example of what product details look like, is we have the underscore ID, we have the product ID, the product name. The product name is also in Spanish, the category, price, and there are other different fields to it. Now, inside product reviews, there is another different document which has product ID, reviews, rating, and the reviewer and the review date. So we are all set to use the first case where we are going to talk about language analyzers. Now, if you have seen the second part of the video where we have talked about English analyzers and how Atlas Search works with English analyzers, but that's not it. Atlas Search also provides you the capability of using different language search analyzers. For example, in this case, we would be using the Spanish analyzers in our case. So, what happens here is if you want to search into an Atlas document or into a MongoDB document where it is stored and the name is written in Spanish and you do not basically know what the alphabets are and the alphabets for different languages, say for Chinese, say for Spanish, or say for Italian, what you can do is you can search it in basic English and you should have the results in front of you. We'll see it through a very good example. Now, if you go to the first case that is there on the Developer Center article, it talks about creating your first index. Now, let's copy this and create the first index through the Atlas UI. To create the first index, select the collection name and then select the search indexes tab. Once you are there, now at this point of time, we do not have any index created inside our collection. So click on JSON editor and let's name it as index 01 in our case, and select the right collection name where you want to create the index. Now, since we have already copied, this is how your index is going to look like. Now, a little bit of explanation of how this index is being formed. The name of the index is index 01, and we are using the search analyzer as lucene.spanish, where the words are written in Spanish, but it allows you to search even with plain English. And we'll specify the field name on which the index is created. In our case, it is product name Spanish. So we would be creating that index on this field. So let's wait for some time to create this index. So by the time it is creating this index, let's go back to the Spring Boot application. Now, the Spring Boot application is basically designed in the MVC feature where we have a controller and we have a service. The controller is where we have written all the REST APIs, and the service is where all of this methods and all of the search is happening. Now, before you get into running this application, there are two things that we need to specify. One is the connection string and the other is the database name. So let's go to application.properties of the Spring Boot application and get the connection string from Atlas UI. So if you click on overview here, once you click on connect, a tab would open. Select the drivers. For us, this would be Java, and then just copy the connection string name. Let's put that connection string here and put it the right password. The database name that we specified was search. Now we are all set to run this application. Now, once this is good start to run, let's go back to the Atlas cluster to see if the index is created. Now, when the index is created, you would see the status of the index as the ready state. And also it specifies the collection name, the database name, the index name, and the index fields on which the index has been created. Now, to run this, we would just simply run the curl command for us. So let's do a little bit of clear, and let's type the first command to run. Let's go back to here. Let's copy this. I'll just give you an explanation of what we are trying to do in a bit once we have the response for it. Now, before using the JQ command, make sure that the JQ is installed. Now, what we did here, we did a simple search application where we are just trying to hit an API. Name of the API is with Spanish, and the query name is RATONINALAMBRICO. Now, this entire word is written in Spanish, but what we have used here is simple English alphabets, the normal English alphabets or the plain English alphabets as you want to call it. Now, if you look at the search results here, the name product name Spanish gives you the result for the word which is not written in plain English, rather written in Spanish. So, this is how your English analyzers or any of the language analyzers would work. You can create these analyzers for 15 other languages. For more, you can go back to the documentation and see. Now, let's see how this REST API has been written. Now, this REST API starts from the search controller.java class, where we have mentioned the REST API as the search index 01, and the method name is search with Spanish. Now, we are specifying here the query that we want to use and also the collection name. Now, why we have used the collection name in this case is we have two different collections, and if we go down to the fourth case that we have that we're going to discuss in this video, that would be making use of another collection. Just to segregate on what query would work on which collection name, we have just specified the collection name and passing it as the parameter. So let's go to search with Spanish function and see how what this is. Now, this just makes a basic database collection where it is trying to get the database name, the collection name, and then is the actual pipeline that happens. Now, it is performing a basic search on the product name Spanish, where we have not done any complicated things over here. We have just specified the path, we have just specified the query. The query was written in plain English, but the output that we got was in Spanish. And we have also put a limit as a aggregator step just to limit the number of output that we are going to get as a part of this query. Now, running this query would give you two different documents from the collection, because on two different documents it was making that exact match. Now let's go on the second case. Now, if you have been on the second part of the video, we have created some normal analyzers that the Atlas Search already provides. Now, that's not it. We can create your own custom analyzers. Now, in this case, we would be taking two different examples. Let's go back and understand on how what we're going to discuss. To do this, I just want to give you a little bit of background on why we are creating this and how are we going to perform a search on this. Now, if you look at the collections and product details document over here, so if you see the product ID, you have the product ID separated with an hyphen, where the first four letters specify the type of the product and then is the unique ID to it. Similarly, if you see the product link over here, now each of these products are available on eBay, Amazon, Flipkart, etc. Now, the product link could be different for each one of them. Now, we would be using some custom analyzers to search some specific keyword only. Now, if you want to search with the product ID, say 5505, for example, you do not need to mention that entire product ID in your case. You can just specify the first few letters that you want, and then it would give you that response. Now, what we are doing here is applying a simple regex method that is going to separate based on your hyphen. Similarly, if you want to find all the product that are listed on amazon.com, for example, or that are listed on ebay.com, for example, what we would do is we would create an index on product link, and we would just specify, say, ebay.com, and then we would get all the results based on the products which are listed on ebay.com. Let's see it with an example. To do this, again, we'll have to create another index, and let's go back to the article to copy the index definition to it. Let's copy this index definition and see in the later part on what this index is all about. Click on JSON editor. Make sure again you select the right collection name. For us, it would be product details. Specify the name as index 02, for example. And this is how I've just pasted it. And I'll just give you an explanation of what this is. Now, we have created two different analyzers. First is the product ID analyzer. This is the custom analyzer name that we have put in, where we are just separating it based on the hyphen. So that is the tokenizer that we have created. Now, based on this hyphen, the tokens would be generated for it. Similarly, we have created also an index called product link analyzer. Now, how this is getting separated is using the backslash that you specify in your www websites. Now, let's create this first and then go back to the Spring Boot application to see how the query has been written. So we go back again to the search controller and come back again to the service method to see how the query has been written. So the first few lines of this with custom analyzer on product ID works the same. You're just getting the database name and getting the collection name for us. The next step is how the pipeline is created. Now, if you see, we are using three different stages. The first stage is the $search. The second stage is $project, and then also we are using the limit stage to just limit the number of output. Now, in the $search stage, again, we are not doing anything very much complicated. We already have our custom analyzers created through the JSON. We just specify the index name as index 02 and the query that we are going to put and the path for it. Now we are just going to get the product ID and product name. This is an optional step. If you want, you can do it. If you do not want, you can just skip this entire pipeline stage. Now we have also built the custom analyzer on the product link. Now, in here, what we are trying to do is exactly the same that we did in the first part. We are going to perform a search using the index named index 02 and performing a query where now the path name is product link and the custom analyzer name is product link analyzer. So let's see if the index should be created by now. Now let's just run this first query that we have. Now what this would do is, let's go back here and let's do curl hyphen x, paste it. Let's do some edits. Okay. And just use the JQ in here just to get a formatted and a pretty response for us. So if you see now, we only have the product ID where we just specified 05050 and we got the product ID for where hyphen 050, and then the product name here is smartwatch. Similarly, you can create this another one. Okay, let's go and copy just the part that we want. So let me just paste it. Now we want to get all the products that are listed on amazon.com, for example. Now you have all the products with the product link which are listed on amazon.com, which is wireless mouse, you have the 4K monitor and the smartphone stand. So these are the usage of the custom analyzers. You can play around with these custom analyzers more and create custom analyzers of your own. Now we'll get into the fourth part. And the third case that we have in our tutorial, which is performing dollar search using dollar lookups. Now, the question always comes in, if you have the dollar search stage as the first stage of the pipeline, how do we do it when we want to do it with lookup? How do we do it when we want to do a join between two different collections? So, this is an example where we are going to utilize the other collection that we created, which was the product reviews collection. And on that, we would be creating this index that will perform the lookup and the search operation altogether. Now let's see how to do it. To create this index, let's go back to the Atlas cluster. Now click on the JSON editor. Now in this case, we'll be selecting product reviews because we are creating an index on the third part. Let's name it as index 03 and just click on next. So this is a very simple index which is created, which is just setting your mapping to true. If you have visited my first part of the video, you would understand what this means. So what this means is there are some specific data type fields which will automatically be indexed if you specify the dynamic mapping to true in your Atlas search indexes. So let's create this search index. So in this case, a few of our fields will automatically be indexed. Now let's see if this index is being created. It is in the pending state. Till then, we'll go back to the Spring Boot application and see what this is doing. Now we've created index on the product reviews collection. So now the collection name here has changed to product reviews. Then you have the same database name, and then happens the pipeline. So inside the pipeline, if you see, we have the dollar lookup stage, we have the dollar match stage, and the limit as we have always used. Now if you look a little bit more into the dollar lookup stage, we have also made use of the dollar search stage in here. So you use the dollar search stage inside the lookup stage to perform this operation. So first of all, you specify the local fields, the foreign fields, and the names that you want to join. And then happens the next step where inside the pipeline, you specify your search query. Now, if you look at line number 87 of the code, it is performing the search operation. A simple search operation which is done on reviews, and we'll performing the query to look for all the product details. So we'll get the product name, product link, for example, and then we would get all of that information all together, joining both of these tables where the reviews have been excellent for us. So let's do this operation. Now the index would already been created. Let's go back and just copy this curl command that we have. To run this curl command, we'll do again curl x to this, and then so now in this query we are just getting all the documents, all the details of all the products which have the reviews as excellent. So this basically performs the join between both the tables, and then it would give you the result. So now if you're seeing here properly, you would see inside each of the documents that you see. Now let's see the first document that we have here. You have the ID specified, you have the product ID which we got from the first table, from the first collection, and then you have the reviews which we got it from the second collection name. So these two details are coming as a result of your lookup operation. Now, this is all about this entire video. If you have any questions related to Atlas Search, if you have any queries related to Atlas Search and how the Spring Boot application has been written, the first thing is you can go back to the tutorial, follow the tutorial. The GitHub repository link is available in the tutorial. The second thing, if you have any questions, you can come to the forums, go and ask your questions there, refer to the exact document that you're referring to, and let us know if you have any questions. The next way is if you can comment down on this video below and let us know if you have liked the video, if you want more such content, or if you have any doubts or queries regarding this. Thank you so much for spending time on this, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.